Welcome to Flesh and Pod, a flesh and blood podcast, breaking down weekly news and notes from the tournament scene, community drama, game strategy, and more. And now, here are your hosts, Darick and Logan.
Hello, and welcome to episode 139 of Flesh and Pod. My name is Logan. I am your host, and with me is the turgid Darick Oswald. You can Google that if you want to. Just don't do it with Rule 34, as with most things on the internet is a very bad idea. How you feeling, buddy?
I am feeling great now that I am here sitting down. I was saying before we went live, we're not live, but before we started recording, that I had a difficult time getting to my chair because I have priapism after such an amazing weekend. I'm at the point now where I'm supposed to call a doctor, consult with them.
Well past
the point.
Well past.
This was all around a good weekend for me on a personal level, because of all of the things that I love in life, like all happening at the same time. So I did not think I was going to go see Deadpool and Wolverine for quite some time. And then at the last minute, we found a babysitter. Normally, my wife and I just use her mother because we don't have a lot of like local folks that we can typically rely on. And her mom is on vacation, won't be back till like well after we're back from Gen Con. So I was like already kind of resigned to, I'm not going to get to go see Deadpool and Wolverine. And then we found out that somebody who used to be a next door neighbor, she's actually graduated and was in between stuff. And so my wife just texted her on a whim and was like, hey, would you, be willing to come over and just make sure Monroe doesn't burn the house down? Because Stark will just play video games the whole time we're gone, right? We just need someone to make sure Monroe doesn't die. And she was like, yeah, sure, no problem. So we got to go see Deadpool and Wolverine. My spoiler-free review is that it was fantastic.
I loved it.
I was ecstatic about the things that were not spoiled for me yet.
Yes.
I could not. There are very few things that I would say could have improved it. There's a couple of like personal wish list items, but for the most part, it was very kind of on point, or at least what I was kind of expecting. It's rare. I'll put it this way. It's rare that I have high expectations for a film and they still get hit or exceeded. And this was one of those cases. So that's my spoiler-free review.
Yeah.
Maybe next After Dark, we'll do a spoiler-related review or something where we can give the proper, like, hey, if you haven't seen it, like, don't listen or whatever. But then my weekend continued with pro tour coverage that featured a lot of players on Assassin. Some of them I think were, it was the meta call, right? We expected a lot of Zen. So natural thing is if you want to beat a bunch of Zen and you don't want to play Zen, you play Nu. So I was not surprised that Nu was well represented. But Nu had really good conversion rates. Also, Uzuri was like, I think 100% for day 2 because there was only like a couple of them.
There was 2.
And it's so funny because this was before, we get to talking about the end results. I was talking to somebody and I was saying, I think we might be hitting a point where Uzuri could actually be the third part of the triangle. This was a local I was talking with because they asked me, they were like, hey, how do you feel about the current meta? And I was giving a much more deep dive, a long-winded, but I basically said, we're at a point right now where it's like you play Zen, you play Nu to beat Zen, or you play something to beat Nu. And I've been going back and forth, and Nu does have some bad matchups. And like one of them is KO. I've said that in the past, but I was like, I think we might be hitting the point where Uzuri actually might be the third spoke. And I had to keep checking myself because of my bias, because obviously I'm an assassin guy, but I'm like, Uzuri has the potential to play really well into Nu because she tends to run more of a mid-range game plan with D-reacts and things, so she can deal with Nu a little bit better. But also, I still think Uzuri's really good into Zen because it turns out isolate into any of the really insanely powerful, 2-for-6s, whether it's CNC to disrupt their combo, whether it's weakest link to get rid of Transcend or Chi, or Amnesia. I've been saying it for weeks now, and I'll say it again today. Amnesia is a hell of a card right now. You should not be sleeping on it. And so when I was looking at all these things, I was like, man, Uzuri might actually be good. And this was Saturday when I said this. So I feel so vindicated today.
Yeah.
And so on top of all that, we got the first, what is it? What do they call it? A mastery set? Is that what it is?
Mastery pack. Yeah.
Mastery pack. But it's like 100 and something cards, right? So there's
140.
Yeah. And they said a good chunk of them will be new stuff. So basically like, it's almost like Guardians Bright Lights, but it's not a full like draftable set the way Bright Lights was. It will still feature like Crack Shuffle Play, if I remember correctly.
Yes, it is.
But it's not meant to be like a big full draftable set, but I get a Guardian set. So lately, for me, on a personal level, everything is coming up aces because my 3 favorite classes in the game are Runeblade, Guardian, Assassin. Assassins are doing well. Guardians are getting new stuff, and we get Runeblades back in Rosetta. And comic-related stuff, both films and the actual comics themselves, have been fantastic. This could be the happiest I've been in a long time. I'm glad that I'm on an off week for talking to my therapist because I don't think I would depress them this week.
God damn it.
And I would feel like that was a personal letdown. So this week I can just be happy and be guilt-free about it.
Okay. I don't even know what to do with that, but the one thing I will say about Deadpool Wolverine really quick is that it was, if you are a wrestling person, you would understand what I'm going to say here, but it was an overbooked disaster piece. And there are so many subtle nods throughout the movie that if you are a comic book fan or a fan of, the sort of the impetus of the comic book movies from the 90s, you will not be disappointed at all. Just that's spoiler free of you. And
real deep cut. So again, spoiler free stuff. If you are also somebody who really remembers that time period and remembers rumors and fan castings and all of these other things, there are extra nuggets. Like I had to explain a couple of things to Sophie because she wasn't fully getting it because she was not as deep into it as I was. But then when I told her, then she was like, I mean, she was cackling through the film as well. She had a great time, even as just like a casual comic fan. But then when I told her a few of the like subtle jokes, like this one's not super spoilery because I'm pretty sure that sequence is in the trailer. But when Deadpool and Wolverine are like stepping out in front of the one store and it's called Liefield's Just Feet.
Just Feet.
And I was like, babe, you got to understand how good this is.
This is such a good joke. It's such a good joke. So we'll give the explanation for the uneducated real quick. Rob Liefeld is the artist creator of Deadpool. Mm-hmm. And he is known as a dude who has 2 giant problems as an artist. One of them is that he cannot get proper ratios on characters literally ever. Like perspective, no, not his thing. But more importantly is the motherfucker can't draw feet. So he would go out of his way to make sure that in shots that either the character he was drawing wasn't standing, was more hovering, so he could just draw like a pointed foot, or he would just cut off having to draw the feet.
Yeah, he would very often frame it so it stopped at like the angles on purpose. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Which is fantastic.
Banger joke.
You know what also is interesting, since we're in Comics Corner at the moment. I don't know if you saw, but they announced there's a new Psylocke series coming. And
I didn't see that one.
And I think it was just announced at San Diego Comic-Con. Because that's the other thing that's happening this weekend. Speaking of amazing things, like the Avengers Doomsday announcement that I'm still trying to wrap my head around. Like, I understand the premise because of the, infamous Iron Man run.
Superior Iron Man.
Well, there's Superior Iron Man, but then they did a run where it was instead of Invincible Iron Man, it was Infamous Iron Man. Same thing.
Okay.
Which explains the casting. This isn't really a spoiler because it's been announced all over the place, San Diego Comic-Con. But if you haven't heard, Robert Downey Jr. is coming back as Dr. Doom.
Right.
And that's because there's a run in the comics where there's an alt universe Tony Stark that becomes Doctor Doom.
And there's a lot of people that have been Doctor Doom in Marvel, like Franklin Richards, Valeria.
Yes.
Yeah, there's a ton.
So there, but I mean, that is also really exciting. But anyway, I mention it because they announced there's going to be a new serial Psylocke book, and I love Psylocke, one of my favorite characters. But there is a variant cover that Art Germ released, and the first thing I thought, if you haven't seen it, I'm going to link it to you now. I know this is really bad for our listeners, and I apologize. Well, but all I thought about was Liefeld when I saw this, because what is happening with her shoulders and neck? Normally, Art Germ is not a problem with proportions, but where is her shoulders and neck going here?
Yeah, I don't know.
Like, I can't. Like I was trying to shove it's not even a hunchback. Like, it's a giraffe she has a giraffe neck on a hunchback of Notre Dame.
Yeah.
And you have to understand, this was so jarring for me because, like I said, normally Art Germ is fantastic with proportions. Like, you have, there is some criticism that he gets levied, and it reminds me of Michael Turner, where he only does like two faces, right? Because that used to be the Michael Turner thing. He has like one face or whatever.
But there's a good face.
Yeah, but like Art Germ falls into that sometimes, but normally like proportionality is immaculate. This one, I was like, dude, am I high?
No. Well, I mean, I mean,
maybe, but
not here to judge.
Yeah.
But it might be the lack of blood flow too. You never know. But it doesn't look right. But okay. And you're right. Usually Art Germ is just on point. But I didn't. Maybe did I? No, because it was revealed at STCC. So I'll have to add that to my pull list as soon as it becomes available through the online pull list client that I use for our local comic store, which is fantastic. I love that they have that. But yeah, there was a lot this weekend, and we had the keynote speech, we had a calling, a battle hardened, and more importantly, we had the Pro Tour.
Yeah.
And so we'll jump right into the Pro Tour. We'll come back to Comics Corner a little bit later here because one of Darick and I's favorite titles is back.
It's back, and
it's quite good.
Now, I was gonna say, and it's now featuring one of my other favorite, like, new-ish characters. So
we'll get to it. To it. But so Pro Tour Amsterdam was won by Shoma Yamamura on Uzuri. Now, I know we've talked a lot on this show about a specific piece of competitive card gaming, and that's the levels of decks, not tiers, levels. So level 0 is obviously Zen, and then level 1 would be new because of its favorable matchup into Zen. Uzuri's the level 3 deck because it's the deck that beats level 2 and also has game into it's the deck that beats level 1, but is also the deck that has game into level 0. And we saw it operating on a perfect axis throughout. Anytime that Shoma was on camera, it was insanely good. Pounding the living hell out of people.
It's very efficient at what it wants to do, and like I said, with Amnesia being a hell of a card, and with both new and Zen, it's very specifically good into those two. And this is what I was trying to explain to my local yesterday when we were talking about it, because we were just talking about the two Uzuris, making day 2 or whatever. And I was like, the isolate into a 6 play, and even without the isolate, but specifically the isolate into a 6 is very strong because neither of those decks really want to block. And even when they do want to block, they don't have a big equipment suite, and they don't typically run a lot of D-reacts. And if they do run them, they probably aren't bringing them in against Uzuri as much as they would other decks. They may if they've done a bunch of testing into her or whatever. And even then, it's probably not enough to save it. It's just one of those decks that has the right tools at the right time, and is also running into 2 decks that are running no blocks in their hands as well, with the Chi and the Transcend cards, and has a low equipment suite. those are all things that traditionally Uzuri like thrives in. Pre Part the Mistveil, I was low on her. That was actually why I was playing a lot of Arachne, because into warriors and brutes and guardians, Uzuri can struggle because they have the big armor suite, right? So they can still do like the one card and some armor cover your entire gimmick. That is much less likely to happen right now, and so I think she is in a much better spot.
Yeah, and like let's not take away anything from the pilot. We were talking about the Japanese national champion and a person that opened the first, and so to my knowledge, only Fab only store in Japan, and oddly enough is from Osaka. So where Worlds is going to be kind of just screen written type of stuff. And Shoma played masterfully. There are no holes in that game. And I was incredibly impressed every time I saw any match on camera, where it just always looked like a clean dismantling. Which, okay, like you have all the tools sitting there, and if you put them in the hands of somebody that knows how to use them, it's dangerous as hell. And we got to see it firsthand, and it was super impressive. So let's do a quick top 8 breakdown here and talk about some of the storylines. Top 8 was Bartosz Ziemba from Poland on Zen, Tom Tidix from Germany on Zen, putting Tam from Hong Kong on Zen. So those are our 3 Zens. Kevin Zanker from Germany on Levia, which is impressive too, for a couple of different reasons. But we had talked about Levia being a dark horse.
I was going to say, we had mentioned that last week, actually.
And Dash IO was towards the top 2, like had a good run in it and just kind of petered out. Like, you're playing the Boom Bust deck. I get it. Then we had Xing Sang from Hong Kong on New. Obviously, Shoma, we talked about his run already. Tariq Patel of Canada. Well, former U.S. national champion Tariq Patel from Canada.
Former Canadian national. I mean, it's Tariq 2 belts. That's why we call him that.
It's Tariq 2 belts.
Yeah, it's Tariq 2 belts.
On New. And Gabe Schur of the home Netherlands on New. So a couple of things. One, no one from the U.S. in the top 8, which I think is awesome. Personally, it shows growth of the game, and we've said on this show forever that this is an international game, and the international community is really fucking good. So you can't sleep on any of that, because whether it's Pablo Pintor and his run, Alex and his run, there are so many stories out there. Team fucking Blue Pitch. So basically putting and Xing just again coming in, taking 2 spots out of the top 8, just pencil the Blue Pitch crew in, call it a day. They're just so good. And also now, and I want to make sure, because we do like to take credit on this show whenever we're just fucking right. And we mentioned a year ago that the Japanese are coming into this game. And once they start, they're going to be really good and very, very dangerous. And we have been our first official launch in Japan with Part the Mistveil. What do you know? First Pro Tour after that happens, we have a Japanese Pro Tour champion. So the floodgates are open. The quality of player that you're going to see coming into this game is only going to go up. And the international community of this game is fucking incredible. So
since we like to mention when we are correct, I would also like to point out that last week, I did not get the new number correct. I predicted that we would have 3 Zens.
We were very close to having 5. But it did wind up being 3, which you were right. The Levia call. Now, I will point out there was a Hatchet Dory that was hovering around the top tables for a very long time. and did not have the best draft on day 2 and sank a bit, but they were hovering around the top tables. I'm like, come on, just come on. So that was great. But this is kind of what we expected to see outside of Uzuri, because again, I think that I wouldn't have thought of the Uzuri as the third spoke or the tier, or, you know, the level 2 deck, as it were, mainly because of my unfamiliarity. Like, I don't know how those matchups play personally, but when you explained it a bit, I was like, oh, right. If they're not fucking blocking, they're eating these on hits. And these on hits are very bad for them.
Well, so it was a combination of things with this. You introduced popular heroes that have a little bit more trouble blocking Uzuri's on hits. That was one of the reasons she struggled before. It wasn't that she didn't have tools. There were just so many heroes that were able to block her out easily. So when you combine her more likely to connect, and she always had good offense, and that didn't go away. Like, I looked at the deck list, and it was everything. It's honestly very close to what I run. I think the only things that were off were I don't run 3 spreading plagues. I think I was on 1 the last time I looked. But part of that is I refuse to run an Uzuri list that doesn't run 1 pummel. I just want to run 1 because it's my favorite card, right? But for the most part, it's pretty standard or close to what I'm running, right? Like, you've got the shreds that are relevant. You've got the Justin Nix now because you have swapped out some of your less efficient stealth cards for bonds and persuasive prognosis that are outstanding. You also got the new damage can't be prevented, right? Which is also fantastic with Justin Nick into Enigma and some of those ward monsters. That was another problem old Uzuri had, so you shored that up. And then similarly, you also have, like I was saying, unlike new, you have a bit more defensive capability because you don't have the Mystic cards. You still run Sync, you run Fate, and you usually run either Inertia or Frailty Trap or some combination of the two. I think the one that won was only running Inertia Trap, but the fact is you have defense react options. So again, into what I'll describe as the new mirror. I know it's not a mirror because it's Uzuri, right? But that's your next closest matchup in the field, let's be honest. So into the new mirror, you get an edge because you know what the game plan is. You're doing the exact same thing, but you have more defensive prowess. They don't, and you have isolate, and they do not. And the dominate's a big deal. Whenever when I was talking to my local, he was somebody that plays Azalea or whatever. And I had said, like, when I play new, whenever I lose to Azalea, it's when they abuse dominate, right? And when you have that interaction with Uzuri into new and you can leverage the dominate, even if it's 2 or 3 times a game, that's still a pretty big deal. But weakest link is also just a really big pickup. Uzuri had access to amnesia before, but Ninja wasn't as prominent before, so it didn't matter as much as it does right now. So when you add the increase in value to amnesia and then you combine it with also the increase in value to weakest link, because that card is just really good right now, you have a lot of options. So I don't know. I think that it's in a much better spot now. Now we'll have to wait and see what the fallout of both the Pro Tour is, as well as the potential fallout if they decide to address Zen further. Like if they add, I don't think they will necessarily, but if they add like 1 or 2 more restrictions and his popularity falls a bit, I actually think that hurts Uzuri.
Probably.
But we'll have to wait and see. But I do think it was just so funny that this happened this weekend, because I was having this conversation and I was like, I feel like it's just my bias because I love Assassin, but I think Uzuri is really good right now.
Yeah, and we also, because, with Zen, so Zen did have a good weekend. Don't think that Zen didn't. The Calling Amsterdam was won by Charles Dunn, former U.S. national champion on Zen. After he tried to play Bravo at the Pro Tour, he was one of the 6 or whatever that was crazed enough, along with Dagan White and 4 others, that thought that Bravo was a good idea. Nope. Moving on.
Yeah.
And so he switched up to Zen.
Before you say the moving on, let me just say one other thing real quick, because we're talking about Charles Dunn. I love that this Pro Tour could be described as like the Champions Pro Tour.
Oh, yeah.
Because Dunn is a U.S. champion. Tarek is a U.S. and a Canadian champion. The winner is a Japanese national champion. And then even Bartos was second at Lille behind Matthew Folks, if I remember correctly. Yep. So, between them and everything else, this, again, just is that highlight of Flesh and Blood that I love, which is the good players continue to rise to the top. It's not to say that not anybody can compete. Everybody always has that opportunity, but I just love that this is definitely a game that rewards people for their time spent.
Yeah, it does 100%. And so with Charles winning on Zen, that kind of just, cements that Zen is still good. It's not like Zen's bad. There was 3 copies of Zen in the Pro Tour top 8. There were 4 copies of Zen in the Calling top 8. So the crazy part to me with Charles's run is that to get through the top 8, had to beat Victor and New to win that event. Like, the bracket was set up so that it had to beat Victor, had to beat New, and managed to do it and took home the W. So that final top 8 was 2 New, 1 Enigma, 1 Victor, 4 Zen. So that one hit the over on the 3.5, but the very close to what we'd expect. Again, kind of shocked there wasn't any Prism, but like, it is what it is. An Enigma can still be good. That's the best way to put it, is with the right matchups, Enigma's still good. Does play a little bit into the lottery, can find some decks that will just prey on it. And I think that's going to keep Enigma from being the best deck. Like, just generally speaking, I don't know that there's room for Enigma to be the best deck in the format, just with the way things are set up. So I still think that the clear best deck is Zen. I think that that's still true. However, it's not this monster that is that you can't fight. There are definitely tools out there to fight the deck. I'm not sure that anything needs done about Zen personally. I think that give it a little bit more time to breathe to see what else people do. But if you see another, calling level event with half the top 8 being Zen, you probably have to have the conversation. But right now, I think we're good to stay in the holding pattern and see it open up a bit. Speaking of opening up a bit, there was a Living Legend Battle Harden, and that format is fucking open.
What?
By the way, wide open.
No way.
Yeah.
Sounds like lies to me.
So the winner of the event was Alex Vore on Kano. Not an LL Tiro.
Well, sometimes people just forget about Dre, though.
They do. They really do. And this top 8 speaks to the right thing being done with the recent changes in Living Legend, because the top 8 was 2 Prism, which no one likes, 1 Zen, so no Zen did not just run over everybody with stubbies and the entire suite, 1 Chain, because always going to be a chain, and then we get Icelander and Oldham. Welcome back.
Yeah, it's weird. It's almost like Channel Lake Frigid, plays a big part in balancing things.
Yeah. And then we had Arcano, and then 1 Starvo. Now, if you remember, the first major Living Legend event was Oops All Starvos in the top 8. And now we have 1. So that format is shaken out to be really cool, because if this is the kind of spread you can look at, almost anything can be viable. And that's awesome. That's what you want to see in the truly eternal format of Flesh and Blood, especially now that we're getting our first LL Calling in Chicago in December. This makes me more excited to play in that one for sure. And I'll be there anyway because it's Chicago. It's an easy trip. Are you going to be in Chicago?
Oh yeah.
Okay, just making sure. Are you? What would you play in Living Legend? Just Starvo?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Okay.
I just like the hero.
I do too. I just don't know how much I love only being able to play one Oakenold and one Crippling Crush. And
yeah, but you still get Starstruck.
That's true. Starstruck is great. Well, you only get one though, right?
Do you need more than one? Like,
yeah, you would like to have your overcards be, available to you.
I guess.
Let's look here at the banned and restricted list. Where are you? Game. Formats. Maybe it's under there. Nope. Sure isn't. Okay. I'm going to find this eventually here. But it's rules and policy has to be under that. Tournament rules, card legality, erratas, Living Legend. So blah blah blah. I don't know. I think Starstruck is restricted alongside Crippling Crush and Oakenold, if I remember right. But I guess I could be wrong. Just not seeing it. Card legality policy, is it under that? Oh yeah, here we go. Living Legend card legality. Here we go. Restricted the following cards: Awakening, Crippling Crush, Hypothermia, Oakenold, Starstruck, and Warmongers. Okay. But at least you get to play all the Spinal Crushes you want. Those are still good.
Yeah.
I like Spinal. Break some spines. It's fine.
I mean, that's just it, right? There's so many. There's so many. I think that's why I was like less bothered by the restrictions with Starvo, because there was already so many classically good cards that you were having to cut because there just wasn't room. So now it's just like, okay, it auto builds itself. You just play them all, but that's fine. Like, at least now I can fit them all in.
Yeah. And I don't know why they just don't ban Warmonger's Diplomacy at this point in time, but I guess I understand why. It's because they don't want any banned cards in Living Legend.
And like, I'll be honest though, I'm also fine with it as a one of.
It's fine, but it's like, why even play it as a one of? Because
sometimes that one turn can save you, like on a good pivot. So like, as an example, in the heavy hitters meta, I was running like one in my Uzuri list as a blue, because a lot of times, like, worst case scenario, it's just still a blue block 3. But occasionally when you would play against like a dash, making them choose, especially pistol dash, making them choose between just reloading all of their pistols or firing once is sometimes enough to buy you, like in the late game, just that one thing is enough to buy you the time you need, right? So
yeah, makes sense. So I would say that if I were to give a grade to the play on the Pro Tour weekend, I would say an A. Definitely an A. Coverage was very good. I thought that everybody was fantastic on the coverage.
Yeah, were you listening to this Brian Gottlieb fella? Turns out he knows a lot about the game. I found his insights to be very helpful.
It was okay. I think that it's.
I think for the next broadcast, if he reads a couple of cards,
Justin. I think they should just get Justin.
Well, the thing about Brian is it's very clear he hasn't read all of the cards.
Well, fair. But I mean, who has that kind of time?
Yeah, I mean,
we don't.
I know I don't.
Yeah. That's not our thing ever. I mean, they let the Brian guy do the keynote speech. So he must be kind of good at something. Like, let's just let him cook. That's what I say. But speaking of the keynote speech, we got a lot of fucking information in a one fell swoop. So first, we got a bunch of Rosetta spoilers. So we now know what the wizards do. And it's terrifying because wizard. The first one is, we'll talk about Auxilio first because we don't know as much about how the hero operates as far as what kind of support it's going to get. But Auxilio Constella Intelligence, once per turn, it's 436. So this one is a lower health hero, which is always disconcerting. And this one is Essence of Lightning, so it's Elemental Wizard. Once per turn instant, discard an instant, draw a card. This sounds like we're doing Madness. If you're familiar with Magic, Madness is you discard a card, and then when you do, you can play it for its Madness cost. This starts to make me think that we're going to be doing something similar.
So here were my thoughts. I think it could be something like that. The other thing that I think could be a possibility is something akin to stuff that like either deals bonus damage based on cards you've drawn this turn, or maybe you amp based on the cards you've drawn this turn.
Could be that.
But something in that vein makes sense to me, because then it becomes an outlet where you are obviously filtering your hand at times, but also giving yourself another thing that you could play into through your hero power, where you have like a more direct synergy type thing. Obviously hard to tell because we have, as you said, less with this hero that we kind of know, but yeah, it could very well, it could be Madness too, or something else that's triggering off of the discard part.
We don't know what the sigils do. We do know that Volzar, the lightning rod, references sigils.
Yeah.
So we don't know what they do. So we could have a very, very odd hero that's a wizard, and that terrifies me because every time we seem to have a hero that's really odd and a wizard, it's just great.
Well, you know what has scared me the most? Because it's very specifically not just sigil, right? It's an aura permanent with sigil in its name. So you know who else plays a bunch of aura permanents? Illusionists. And the last thing I need is an illusionist wizard, even in theming. So I'm having some problems with that. That's okay. Because I was thinking like, Prism, a lot of her stuff that she's playing as auras are also instants, right? We're very used to you play an aura as an instant play pattern in Flesh and Blood already. So the fact that Auxilio would then let you cycle some of those through, you discard your aura instant to do the thing, I do think makes sense in some capacity, but I'm waiting to see what else pops up. But you're right. This is a very interesting hero just on the surface, and has, in my mind, the potential to be a bit scary.
Yep. And also very scary is Verdansk, Thorn of the Rose, because she just looks nice and kind and kind of like Sophia.
Yeah, I already showed her when they showed the Marvel version. I was like, hey, this is what you're cosplaying as.
Fair enough. And then her text reads anything but. So Verdansk, Thorn of the Rose is for 40 elemental wizard hero. Alarm bells already. Essence of Earth. The text is, if there are 8 or more Earth cards in your bandage zone, Verdansk gets, whenever you gain health during your turn, you may deal 1 arcane damage to any opposing target.
Yeah, and this is not, I'll be honest, that much of a surprise to me. If we go back to our very initial reveals, I kind of called that I suspected that she would be dealing damage based on health gained because we saw a heartbeat, right?
Yes.
That's what this is the build up into heartbeat of Candlehold, which is her specialization. And for those of you who don't remember what that card does, you gain 1 health, then you gain 1 health, then you gain 1 health, and then you go again.
Take an arcane, take an arcane, take an arcane.
Yeah, but it's a 6-point swing technically because you're gaining 3 while trying to deal 3. You always gain your 3, so even if they AB the rest of yours, you're still getting value. I went back and I was like, wait, Heartbeat of Candlehold is like theoretically a 1 for 6 with go again? Hello? Yeah, feels pretty good.
Feels fine. And also a blue block 3. Forgot that part. But the first thing I read the hero, I'm like, oh, better fucking never get dishonored. Because if you do, your deck might not do anything anymore. Just throw that out there.
Yeah.
But so to clear things up, it's whenever you gain health during your turn. So if you cast like a Sigil of Solace on your turn, it's still an instance of gaining health, so it would only deal 1 arcane damage. And if you had a Sigil, unless you amp, and if you had Sigil of Solace on your opponent's turn, you wouldn't gain anything. Same story with like an Oasis Respite. If it gained you health on your opponent's turn, not going to do anything. Really fun counterplay into things like Icelander, though, or Kano, where you can gain the health on your turn.
Yeah.
And especially if there's an Aether Wildfire active and you manage to respite one of their spells and deal the one that's amped there, that's pumped by the wildfire.
Yeah. You're like, all right, I respite yours. I let the wildfire go. I respite the next thing. I heal 1, and then I like deal you 4 or whatever.
Yeah, however much.
Yeah, would be kind of silly. Healing balm or whatever it is. Stocks going up potentially.
Yep. Oh yeah. So is Poison the Well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Poison the Well. I feel like there's one other thing that I was forgetting. Oh, that's right. Heart of Fyendal.
Heart of Fyendal.
Stocks going up.
Mm-hmm. Pitch Heart of Fyendal, and it's effectively also Arknight Shard.
Yeah, I don't like to play stock market, cardboard, whatever, but if this is a hero you are interested in and you do not currently own a heart, I would strongly suggest trying to get one before the prices go up even more.
Yeah.
So
very much so.
I'll say.
I am sad that Arknight Shard is a Viserai specialization because it'd be a lot of fun with Florian. We did Florian is double. Florian is 8 cards in Banished for the adult version, by the way. Like that's confirmed. They're all
it's just like Salsa Verde.
Yeah. Salsa Verde.
Yeah, Salsa Verde and Night of Flowers.
You got it. So, sure. We also got split cards. So, if you came from Magic, you're familiar with this as the fuse mechanic, where you could cast both halves of split cards. But these are meld. So you may play both or one or both halves of the card when you play it, and they both have the same cost. So if you want to play both, you have to pay the cost twice. But some of them just cost 0, like Thistlebloom Life is a good example here. So Thistlebloom Life is a Runeblade action and an Earth instant. So it's 2 different cards, but they're the same card. Life is an instant of just gain 1 health. This is a Runeblade. And then Thistlebloom is a Runeblade action of create X rune chance, where X is the total life you've gained this turn. So since you control the card, you would be able to order which card is resolving first. So in this case, it's basically if this is the only thing you're doing, it's cost 0, so each side costs 0, so you get to play both halves. It's free. It's a yellow block 3, but you would gain a life and then create a rune chant. Would be the minimum value, right? No go again or anything like that. So sure. But again, Spellbound Creepers is a card. And this is where Spellbound Creeper stocks become a real thing.
Yeah, I was going to say this. I feel like when this set is close to coming out, we really need to get Josh back on.
Oh, we will.
Because I need to hear about the nightmares that this set has created for him specifically, because I already have questions about Spellbound Creepers interactions with some of these like half and half cards, as well as negate effects. And I know that we're going to talk about another one that was revealed that has that, but they did already exist in the game. It's not something new. But because this is 2 halves of 1 card, if I have something that says like negate an instant, does that hit the whole card or just the half that's played or what, right? Like there are so many unknowns for me with the rules right now, and I'm kind of dying to hear how that got sorted. I know he'll.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So like Burn Up Shock is probably the first one I saw, and I went, oh, Spellbound Creepers, you don't say, because it's a red block 3, 0 cost. So again, you can play both halves for free. It's the first one is a Runeblade action. The next time an attack you control hits a hero this turn, deal 4 arcane damage to them, which is already Jesus. At least they put on hit. So you can't shock tremors.
But it's not bullshit. It's the next attack you control that hits. It's not just the next attack gets. So this is also,
it's still very good.
Like if you play an attack with go again and that gets blocked out, but then you swing with your weapon and the weapon hits, like this still triggers. Like this triggers is nutty. Off weapons. This card is insane.
This card is bonkers.
It's like a 0 for 5.
Yeah, because the other side is just shock. Deal 1 arcane damage to any target. Okay. That's cute.
Like when I saw this, now granted, there is a AB potential here because it is arcane damage and there are all of those things. But when I saw this, my immediate comparison was it reminds me of Toxicity, but a million times better. The number of times I've wanted to put Toxicity in an assassin deck to try to make it work is probably way too damn high, but it's pretty hard to pull off to deal that 5 extra damage. This is like I could play one half, both halves. It's threatening like multiple attacks. It's not even class limited or like weapons can trigger it. Like I looked at this and I was like, man, Toxicity feels so bad compared to this, even though you can't like AB the Toxicity. So I get that it's not a 1-to-1, but the fact that this is, I think, so much more flexible and still a 3 block just really put it over the top for me. I really felt like this should be a 2 block personally, but what do I know?
Yeah. It's also, it's, if you're doing the shenanigans with, it's only an Aurora because it's a lightning card. So you can't play it in every Runeblade. It's
only an Aurora so far.
Yeah, right now. Right. And we have all kinds of these because we have Pulsing Aether Life, which at least this one costs 1.
You just wait until they print Bravo Runeblade of the show. That's all I'm saying.
That's true. But can you imagine like attacking with a CNC no go again? They don't have an arsenal and they're just loud and proud, no blocks. And so you pitched a blue, you just activate creepers and play Burn Up Shock out of arsenal. And now the CNC is dealing 10. You deal the extra. You gave it go again because of the fucking burn up. And you just get to do other shit anyway. It's just like, these are big blowouts. Like, that's scary. We also got go ahead.
I would just like to point out that this card, even without Spellbound Creepers, is potentially pretty busted as well with Briar in Living Legend because of, and potentially Aurora as well, but I'm thinking back to Arya, and there were so many things that were like, if your next attack or whatever deals damage, then you like amplify the damage or whatever. So it's like, and let me also just say real quick, sorry, my brain is like going in a mile a minute because this card is so bonkers to me. Like, let me just say that I'm very, very happy that Ball of Lightning is still not playable. Let me start there.
But it is in Living Legend.
But it is in Living Legend. Like,
yeah. Also, Briar just gets to play Pulsing Aether in Life, which is just an Earth. Or no, can't. Sorry, Briar can't play because it's Wizard. This one's Wizard.
Yeah, that one is at least Withered. But
yeah, this one's Verdance, where each half costs 1, so it costs 2 to play both. But it's gain 1 life, which we already know Verdance's ability, and then deal 4 arcane damage to any target. Sure. Sounds great.
So again, theoretically, like a 1 for 6. Right. Because it'll be gain 1, deal 4. As long as her hero power is active.
Yep. And then the Lightning Wizard one that we saw was Comet Storm with Shock attached to it, which Comet Storm is deal 5 damage to any target, deal 1 arcane damage. Shock is deal 1 arcane. This one costs 2 at least, so it costs 4 to do both. So this one's not particularly great compared to Burn Up, which is dumb as shit.
You know what else is an interesting rules question I have?
What's that?
Cards like Chains of Eminence.
Right. Does it prevent both half of the cards being
right?
Half
or
of the card
like if you just say shock, for example, does it only stop the shock half, or are you not allowed? Do you have to say null shock? Or if you could just say shock, would it stop the full card, but also stop the full card, whether it's null shock or burn up shock, for example, or Comet Storm shock? Like, again, I have so many rules questions, and I do not envy poor Josh when I look at this set.
Yeah, so null shock is each half costs 1. Meld instant, wizard instant, lightning instant. Null is if target instant card has cost less than the total arcane damage you've dealt to opposing heroes this turn, negate it. So just counter it. And then shock is obviously deal 1 damage. So that one is probably a pain in the ass, I would guess. Just thinking that one through.
Yeah.
But
well, and again, I have the same questions for this with the negate, right? So like if my opponent plays burn up and shock, for example, right? And then I answer with null shock, because burn up and shock both cost, 0 technically. And I choose to negate the shock of burn up and shock because that one's an instant. Am I just stopping the shock, or am I stopping both?
I don't. Yeah.
I
will
a good
say, question.
So I had a few people actually message me when null shock was revealed, and they were like, "Are we just like playing Magic now? Is this like when the counter spells come?" And I had to, remind a couple of people in the few that I did reply to, or I was like, "Well, technically, we've already had negate in the game for a while." And also, I personally am fine with stuff like this because it's only instant. And when we look at the current meta, for example, having something that could potentially negate some of the transcends, I think would go a long way for counterplay. And also, it's, in my mind, it's less about like a big counterplay, because we're not like as much of a board centric game the way Magic is, where counterspelling a creature is as big of a deal as it would be here with an instant. But I do think that this, for most of the time anyway, this negate effect is more likely just a Oasis respite in disguise.
Probably.
Right? Like you're either going to prevent the damage that you would have been taken, or you're just going to prevent damage because the other card that I was talking about was Art of War. I was like, honestly, I think having more counterplay available for cards like Art of War is good for the game. And if somebody plays an Art of War and then you try to counterspell that, like, yeah, it's a big play, but also the reality is you just are negating damage ultimately. it's a big chunk of damage probably that you're negating, but I think
still negating.
Yeah, I think having playable cards like this is fine for
I think
right
it's
now.
okay. Especially as a way for wizard to handle wizard, right? Like that kind of being
Or
a big deal
wizard
too.
to handle ninja.
Right.
Because as you said, you're already playing Don't Get Dishonored, and then if they can also just still freely Art of War and Transcend at will, you might have a problem. So
the last thing is the weirdest thing to me, which is Sanctuary of Aria. Now, this is a token Rosetta macro. You start the game with this in the arena when playing a Rosetta limited format. Okay. So they're very careful not to make this an aura, which is probably a good idea.
Mm-hmm.
And they made it so that this only starts, doesn't have a cost. So you, even if you decide to put it in your deck for some reason, you couldn't play it. Does not have a pitch value, doesn't have a block value. Its text is simply instant, pay 2 resources, prevent the next one damage that will be dealt to you, that would be dealt to you this turn by a source of your choice. Destroy this at the beginning of the end phase. So you can pump 2 resources into this. Think of it like Quell or whatever it was that allowed you to kind of dump resources.
Well, that's what I was getting ready to say. I love that they're doing this just for the limited format, and that they're doing this with this like new board thing. They're calling it a macro. I don't know if like that's the right word that resonates with me, but the rest of the card I think is A+ design, because this is just Helios Miter, but without taking up your head slot. Because in the set where we had Helios Miter, it was kind of a big deal because we didn't have a lot of ways to stop the arcane outside of Quell. And at times, like if you were trying to choose between that and a more relevant headpiece, it felt like a pretty big trade-off, if you ran into Icelander. So knowing that this is going to be such an arcane-centric set, this is just giving everybody one free Helios Miter that doesn't take a slot, only for limited. And I think that's perfect. I think that's probably exactly what it's going to need. And so I dig it.
Yeah, it's a good solution. I mean, modern solutions for modern problems.
Yeah.
But, activate my Excel macro is not something that I thought that I'd be saying in my card game, but we are playing a spreadsheet card game.
Yeah, I was going to say, I don't know that macro resonates with me. It's probably fine, but you hit the exact reason, right? Like I work in IT and data, a bunch of stuff. So when I see the word macro, it tends to have a different meaning.
Right.
I'm not like thinking about like, hey bro, did you hit your macros today? No, I'm thinking like, I push one button and then like 10 things happen on my screen sort of thing. So
I'm thinking about, those types of macros and then the EUCTs involved in them that are just unregulated messes that can also fail, that have not been tested. You know what? I'm not going to keep going. We do have also 3 red cards to quickly talk about. First one is Hand Behind the Pen, which is a 2 cost, 6 attack, 2 block. When this hits a hero, turn a card in their arsenal face up, then banish a non-attack action card from their arsenal. Smash Up is the 1-for-5 version, which is when this hits a hero, turn a card in their arsenal face up, then banish an attack action card. Then Tongue Tied is the 3-for-7, so this is the most playable one of them. When this hits a hero, turn a card in their arsenal face up, then banish an instant card from their arsenal. If nothing else, it's a 3-for-7. So those are just generics. They look like generics. They function like generics. They're one bad CNC, one 1-for-5 with some ability tab staple to it. The other one's a 3-for-7, and the ability could be nothing, and it wouldn't matter. It's a 3-for-7. So that's much ado about nothing, quite honestly. But just wanted to get those out there.
You know what other thing I want to just call attention? 2 things. Two things I want to call attention to real quick.
Well, one, the art.
Kind of. We're getting there. But the first one, it's a 3-for-7.
Mm-hmm.
And the second one is the art, but I was going to say art on a different card. We also got the art for the new Rune Chant.
Oh, it's gorgeous.
As much as I loved the old Rune Chant art, because that looked phenomenal, the new Rune Chant art also goes really fucking hard. I didn't think I could say this after Part the Misfail, but I'm really liking the art in this.
Yeah, no, it's already looks really great. I like the broccoli guy. He's great.
Yeah, broccoli guy is great. I want to ride whatever the dude is riding in Smash Up as well. For the record, the like moose, elk, wolf thing looks really cool.
Yeah, with the club and that looks fantastic.
But you're right. Tongue Tied had great art. I love the like censoring of the mouth. Like everything is just so good already.
Yeah, and obviously Federico did an insane job with Ocilio. The Azor with Aurora. A lot of people are just like, oh, it's just Jinx, and I'm like, yeah, okay. And Ant, I guess. I don't know why that's bad. Yeah, I everything looks really good so far. A+, no notes type of shit. It's gonna be hard for me because I have a cold foil rune chant, and unless this new rune chant comes in cold foil, I won't be able to give up the cold foil rune chant.
I mean, it will at some point, and then you can rock both of them.
Yeah, that's obviously what I would do. It's not like the Zen State token where the green bordered Zen State token is the only correct answer. And the cold foil is the green border. Next up, where are we at? Okay, Rosetta spoilers, but we still have a timeline to talk about.
Wow.
For fuck's sake, we still have a lot to talk about. And you're right. And Comic Corner still, and listener questions.
There was so much. Like
I know we're paying for that one sub 1 hour episode we did by whatever the fuck we're doing now, knowing that we have to like gird our loins for a Josh Scott episode soon, going through all the rules, which will be a 3-hour banger. So we knew what we were getting into when we did a sub 1 hour episode. We knew that we were banking karma, so to speak. And now it's just going to be, back to the long ones. That's goes with the priapism. But so first up, Pro Tours, and this is interesting to me. The 2 Pro Tours for next year that we know about are in the EU and Asia Pacific. So not in the US, not North America. So with a Pro Tour this year in Amsterdam, and then Worlds in Osaka, and we already know that if there are only 2 Pro Tours next year, that they are not going to be in North America. But we don't know where Worlds is yet. There's that. That's pretty interesting to me. The ProQuest seasons are in October and April. So October of 24, so coming up fairly soon. It's only a few months away, 2 months away. And also when Osaka is. And then April, so April 25. We also get Road to Nationals in February. So we're in February, then we have a breather in March, and then April. And the Nationals are in June. So that's a little bit different. I mean, no, Nationals were in June this year, right? I think so.
Yes.
Yeah, it had to
That's
have been
when
June.
we were in Minneapolis?
Yeah, that's when we were in Minneapolis. Yeah, it had to have been June. So I think that's probably going to be where Nationals resides from here on out. I mean, I can always check too.
I'm just going to search for my
your airline itinerary.
Yeah. Problem is I've got a million emails from the last time that my flights got.
Yeah, you ran really hot this weekend because you didn't get on an airplane.
The problem was I jinxed myself because when I had all those troubles getting to Origins and I couldn't make it for Alpha Clash, I said, at least I won't have problems because I'm flying to New Jersey, so my car can't die. And then I had all of those problems anyway.
Yeah, you can't do that. But pretty sure it was June. So I just think that's where Nationals is going to reside from here on out. Is this going to be in June? We have new full sets in January and May.
It was June.
Yeah. So most likely January, May, and December, or not December, in October, September, that general area will be the new sets for next year. They didn't have all the way out through the year, through 2025 listed. on the timeline. We also, and this is something I do want to take a minute on. So there's Armory decks coming, one during the holiday season this year, one in April, and one in July. One of these is going to introduce a new hero. So the Armory deck itself will be introing a new hero to Flesh and Blood. We do have a listener question around this, but which we'll talk about what we want to see or what we think will be. But I want to address the, I guess, consternation some people have about the limitations that we've seen now on obtaining heroes and the kind of barriers that it presents. We've seen the Blaze thing already, where people want to play Blaze and Blitz and are having very hard time finding one. We also have seen, especially early in formats, particularly early in formats, that having the adult heroes in the Majestic slot sometimes causes issues. I was at a Road to Nationals or ProQuest, one of the two, where I think it was Road to Nationals, where one of the players was just scrambling around the room trying to find an adult KO because they had the entire deck. They just didn't have the hero. And then now you're adding another layer by having heroes that you can only obtain through an Armory deck. What do you think of this approach?
I'm fine with it in theory. I think the biggest issue is that the Armory decks are also supposed to be like in limited quantities, and so they can't, without like kind of going back on that expectation, just overprint the ones that have a new hero, right? Like it makes sense to me to keep things kind of small or whatever for existing heroes because there's a million ways to access those. So this whatever hero it's going to be either needs to still also be accessible in a different way shortly thereafter, or it needs to be, slightly printed more, or it's kind of tied to the listener question, but I have some ideas on what it also could potentially be. To me, it would make sense for it to be some sort of hero that they want to either release or a card pool that they want to revisit or expand upon without having to wait for a full draftable set again.
Right.
So, one thing that immediately jumps out, and you already mentioned it, so I'll say it here and save my other potential theory for when we get to the listener question. But you mentioned Blaze, right?
Mm-hmm.
It would make total sense to me if that's when they were like, you know what, here's the adult Blaze.
Sure.
Right? We did the convention stuff for the young one, and then also gave some other opportunities to get versions of that. And then, here's your adult one, and that's like the full hero release. Because right now, anyway, based on what we know for the near future, it just doesn't seem like she would fit into a set. And so there's enough wizard stuff where you don't have to wait for a full set because that card pool is already there. It's about to be expanded upon a little bit further in the next set. But if you wanted to introduce an adult version of that hero, like that makes sense. I do have one other theory, so I will wait for when we get to Dom's question. But that's my initial train of thought. I'm not like super excited about this type of release thing, but I can see certain scenarios where it potentially makes sense to do this.
Yeah. It really depends on the hero, I think, is where I'm at.
I also agree, which is why I'm waiting till we get to the listener question, because I have a different choice, and I have what I think is a somewhat reasonable explanation for why I think it would work in that one instance, but
right. And I'm
trying to follow the show notes.
I appreciate that. Like, thank you for staying in the relative timeline, I guess.
Yeah.
Ish. The sacred timeline of the show notes.
Yeah. So we should speed through this other stuff so then I can talk about it.
Motherfucker.
Well, because the other listener question is directly tied to our next topic too. So
it is. It really is. Like, they did a bang up job this week. So the last thing is we are getting Mastery Pack Guardian coming in March or early April, along with Darick, and Clark for that matter. And yeah,
dude, I can't wait. Clark, if you're listening, and I know you are, we should get like you and me and Ben and whoever else is in the Michigan area together and do like a Guardian boot camp when this set comes out, because this is our time to shine.
So it's 140 cards. All are Guardian. Most of them are new. And it is not a draftable set. It is a crack shuffle playable set, but this is not a main set release. That's all I'm going to say about it until we have listener questions, because we have a lot more to say about this one too, I'm sure. But I think that we should just leave that there as this is coming. And we'll talk about it in depth in a minute because we have questions around it. You ready for some Comics Corner?
Yes.
Did you read NYX?
Already did it, but I did, because I was extra sold. I hadn't looked into previews of the book, so I didn't know necessarily what to expect going in, but I was pleasantly surprised that it's gonna center around Miss Marvel.
Yeah, Kamala Khan. Yep.
And I love her character too, so I dug it. It's still it's not quite what the original was. Like, part of the thing that appealed to me was that it wasn't just like mutants in New York, but it was like, for lack of a better term, when that very first NYX title launched, it was like the kind of forgotten about mutants in New York, like the people who weren't special enough to matter to the X-Men or whatever. And it was just their like normal, like trying to survive the streets of New York stuff. So it was like half mutant book, half like coming of age in a big city book. I think this new launch is obviously not going to be able to follow in that vein, because the characters they're choosing already have a pretty solid history at this point. Whereas with that initial NYX launch, it was, people you'd never heard of before, like by design. So there is part of me that's still kind of missing that, but for what this book was meant to be, I enjoyed it.
Yeah. So the original NYX is sort of like a diluted version of the movie Kids in some instances.
Yep, that is a great way to put it.
And I feel like you probably have a hard time doing that in the current Marvel versioning, unless you're going into the sort of red band area that they started to traverse, where you can buy specifically comics that are the same as a non-red band version of a comic, but they have extra pages added with additional gratuitous natures, whatever, however you want to put it. But I think that seeing this book and how it works, I mean, the one through line is obviously X-23 is there.
Yep.
So she debuted in comics in NYX. Mm-hmm. And so that's your through line, but the lineup of characters that they have in the book, I absolutely adore, because
you're a little cuckoo.
I am a lot cuckoo. I absolutely love.
So for those of you who don't know, I just made a pun.
You did, and I'm okay with it because it's referring to the Stepford Cuckoos, who are fucking crazed and a ton of fun. And they're in the book, Sophie being one of the focal points of the book, and it sort of has I love that it has some Hellfire Club. I love that it has, a a kid from New Jersey going to a special school in New York, and her parents don't know shit about fuck. And I love that part. I love that, they're doing a thing on a class on Krakoa, and how, Krakoan era of mutant relations and all this shit, and goes through this entire spiel of setting the class up. And then Sophie Cuckoo's just like, that's bullshit. You were fucking there. That's not what happened. And he kind of has to look at just like, God fucking damn it. It's that kind of shit, because everybody's been in that college class where, the professor's talking about something and somebody in the class obviously pipes up, sometimes with, agency that matters. And sometimes without. Sometimes they're just fucking spouting off about shit they don't know about. But it's always just an interruption of telling the professor how wrong they are. And it's always a get your popcorn moment whenever that shit happens. So I was really happy with it. I really enjoyed it. So far, 3 swings and 3 hits at the mutant reboot in Marvel. And then if you want to count Deadpool and Wolverine in that as well, with the film, they're still batting 1,000. They're doing God's work over here and making it a worthwhile time investment to read through these stories, and I'm here for it. The writing's been incredible, and I believe this week we finally get Uncanny X-Men, which is Gail Simone, and I adore Gail Simone. So I can't wait for that one either. It'll be a lot of fun. It looks like it's only going to get better.
I mean, stuff does look fun. You know what else I was thinking about regarding like that first NYX book? I also realized that because it had a similar vibe. I just miss either books like that or like books like Runaways. Because like NYX to me,
Runaways.
I loved Runaways too. And like NYX to me, the more I was thinking about it, I was like, NYX was like kind of like Runaways if the parents in Runaways weren't somebody's. You know what I mean?
Yeah, kind of.
Like it was still kind of that like, coming of age story where they're forced into their own independence and then still have to like navigate the world, right? Runaways different problems, obviously. If you're not familiar with the original Runaways arc, it's basically like kids of supervillains, and they find out that their parents are supervillains, so they run away because they find out their parents are doing villain shit. So
and they have some of the fucking coolest shit.
Yeah, like it was just such a fun book, and I will say that I think is what I like most about the X books since the reboot, is that they're just fun. Not to say that some of the other books weren't fun, but there was a lot of like relatively heavy stuff during the Krakoan era, and I kind of just missed like
lighthearted.
Yeah. And not like true like slapstick silly lighthearted, just like a good like feel good story, right? Like I don't know. I missed it.
Yeah, this is so you do have next week is X-Force 1. So we get X-Force, which is going to be Rachel Summers, Psylocke, Sage, Surge, Tank, and then this is Forge's team.
I always liked Forge too.
I like Forge a lot. And this is the first issue is a Deadpool issue. So that'll be fun. And then the week after is Uncanny One. Which
that makes sense. That makes sense.
So that's the second to last ongoing one in the lineup. And that team is pretty incredible because it's Rogue's team. And so that's Rogue, Gambit, Colossus, Storm. Like it's that one will be a lot of fun. Storm's kind of MIA right now because she's doing her own shit. So this one's mostly Gambit, Jubilee, Nightcrawler, Rogue, Wolverine, and then one of the dragons. So that'll be fun. So I'm really excited for what's coming up. Then we have the Storm ongoing, the Mystique ongoing, and the Sentinels limited, or I think Mystique might be limited too. But
and then that Psylocke.
The Psylocke, yep.
Ongoing. I read the synopsis for it. Yeah, I read the synopsis for it, and like the basic, it's going to be, Quanon, and the premise that the person who's writing it kind of gave is that Psylocke was bred to be an assassin, essentially, right? Like that's what Quanon was intended to be from a very young age, and the writer was like, they were really interested in the character because everything about their tragic backstory says they should be a villain. So it's essentially, why do they continue to choose to be a hero? But also because of their past, they're also more willing to do some of the things that traditional X-Men wouldn't do, right? So this is kind of going to be, now this is my extrapolation from that, but it feels like this is almost going to be like the X-Men Punisher, right? It's like the idea of like, what if you have like, the moral compass of an X-Man, but you're also not afraid to do the dirty assassin shit, right? Like you're willing to cross some lines. So I'm very curious to see how they tackle it. And it said that it's going to be like, even though they're going to do the ongoing, she's still going to be a part of, Cyclops' team in Alaska or whatever, as well. So
yeah, Quanon is part of Cyclops' team. And then, so backstory, there's essentially two different Psylocks. There's Quanon, who is a bred assassin, and then there's Betsy Braddock, who is a pseudo-noble British woman. And there's a whole fucking thing with these two.
Yeah, that's putting it mildly.
A different episode, because it would take the entire thing.
Imagine the movie Face Off, but with telepaths.
And a mirror.
And a dragon.
Yeah.
And a purple blade from your fist.
So yes, so right now Quanon is Psylocke and Betsy Braddock is currently Captain Britain. They are effectively the same thing, but not. That's the best way to think of it. Moving on, because we just went 12 minutes on comic books. Reminder for your next Realm Fest, which is August 31st to September 1st in Columbus. We still don't have a lot of information on it. We know it's a classic constructed 5K invitational, and then invites to the 50K are on the line. So plus the cash, there will also be a Lorcana qualifier, a Star Wars Open, an Alpha Clash Awakening. So there's a lot of things that'll be going on at that event. Again, more as details become available, we'll obviously be filling you in and getting links and stuff like that set up so you can go ahead and get in there and get registered. But we always like to give you a heads up about the next other things happening with the Realm, because we just think it's really cool. This is also just a reminder of a hashtag free ad, but you much I love those. But Camp Green Tree will be happening shortly as well, I believe in a couple weeks. So if you haven't gotten in on that, and you're interested in going to the first ever Flesh and Blood Summer Camp, you probably should get in on that. I believe the Green Tree Sports Cards page has all the information there, or GTSC Fab, I think, on Twitter. Either way, but it is definitely something worth looking into if you are interested in camping and playing cards. Now, are you ready for listener questions?
Yes.
Let's go. Okay. So the first one is from Dom. Armory Decks. What class do you want the Armory Deck exclusive hero to be, and what do you think it'll actually be? I'm going to take this first, and I think what do I want it to be? Not Earthbrute, that's for sure. But I think I would love this to be the Necromancer deck. But it'd be really hard to print enough support for a new class in an Armory deck situation, so I don't think it can be that. What I think it is an ice hero. And my guess would be that they would do probably an ice guardian would be my guess. But again, only a guess. But ice is a very hard thing to balance in limited. And then you have a guardian master pack coming around the same time that you can kind of help put some extra support in. So it makes sense to be guardian. And I think that they would like to keep ice out of limited because it does make for a fairly miserable experience sometimes. So that's my take on what I think it will be. I would love it to be a new class, but it's kind of impossible to do in an Armory Deck sort of ecosystem. All right, Darick, let's go.
All right, so very similar reasoning, actually. But I'm going to go with a different hero. So what I think it is also what I hope it is. So we're just going to get that part out of the way. It's chain time. It's chain time, and I think that they don't want to wait until the next time they do a shadow set. And then even when you do, depending on whatever this new chain is, trying to balance around in limited the banish from stuff and then play from banished and blood debt and whatever. I think the next time they go to shadow, they will likely want to explore like just new options within that realm to begin with. So to me, because chain has been LL'd for so long, and because he has an existing card pool that people could already pull from, and again, for the limited reasons, right? Because I don't think that they want to wait and do that all in a new set. It would not surprise me if it was a Chain 2.0.
That makes sense too. I mean, yeah, and actually for the same reasons.
And new set, you're getting Runeblade stuff. Just like you were talking about with the Guardian Mastery thing. Hey, we're also getting a new Runeblade set recently, so might be some new stuff there. But I just really feel like it's chain time finally.
I could actually see that. It has been a long time. And chain LL'd in 2022.
Yeah,
so
Eclipse,
2 years ago.
Eclipse not playable in Classic Constructed for 2 years, and that's a real feels bad for a Legendary. So
no, that's absolutely true.
Let's make Eclipse playable again. Make Eclipse great again.
Make Eclipse great again.
Mega.
It's mega. Jesus fuck. Yeah. I actually think that makes a lot of sense. I really enjoy that. I'm not changing my answer.
No,
but
listen, here's the thing. I also know that because I want it, it won't actually be what happens, but I think it checks a lot of boxes. Like if they did it, it's 100% like that makes sense to me.
What if it's Shadow Ice Runeblade?
I don't want it to be too talented like that. I would still rather see an Ice Ninja before we get like Shadow Ice Runeblade. But
you want an Earth Brute though. You're a
no. Here's the reality. I don't actually want an Earth Brute, but if I'm gonna get something I don't want, I just want it to be the stuff of nightmares, so I continue to torment you with Earth Brute. But like that actually scares me.
Yeah, that is the stuff of nightmares. Channel Mount Brute is fucking dumb.
Channel Mount Brute would be dumb.
Nope.
Yeah, but yeah, just give me Chain, right? Give me Chain 2.0.
I think Chain's great. Yeah. Last question. Well, second to last. I got a new one that just came in, so we'll do that one too. This one's from Justin S. Mastery packs, yay or nay? Are they just Bright Lights 2.0? So, step one, yay. In my mind, because I think this is an improvement over Bright Lights. Bright Lights as a full set left people really wanting, because the support for other heroes was limited to the expansion slot. So if you weren't a mechanologist player, there wasn't much for you. And that really sort of isolated, especially for a full set release, right? Where people are going to be drafting it and it's going to be the prizes given out. I think it really did a lot of harm for interest in certain places. And this is a really good pullback to say, we want to keep doing this. We want to keep giving support to classes as we think they need them, but not doing it in a way that sort of defines competitive formats in limited, I think makes way more sense. So I am firmly in the yay category on this particular issue. Darick, where are you at?
I'm very much in the yay, and I think that it's better than Bright Lights 2.0 because it is not a fully developed set, but you still get a lot of single class support, right? Which I do think is part of what they were trying to do with Bright Lights. Like, yes, they were also experimenting. Like, let's not take that away. They were trying to see if it would work, how it would work, whatever. Sometimes you just have to do the thing to know whether it works or not. But going with a full set and all of that dev time and also trying to balance it around limited play and things like that is, I think, a much bigger task than just saying, here's a bunch of support for a single class. And I love that it's still crack shuffle playable, because I think that's really important for new player adoption. However, I also think that it's better to not do single class stuff as draftable, because for me, I think that the biggest negative for Bright Lights was that even though the heroes are all still different and they have their own different sub themes in limited, where you don't get to fully build into your sub themes, a lot of them still felt the same, right? So there wasn't, for the most part, a lot of difference between, say, piloting a Max and a Teklo, other than like the Evos that you try to draft or whatever. Mm-hmm. That is why I truly feel like Bright Lights felt so bad. Like, you could talk about other balance issues and how it was essentially a fatigue set and this and that and whatever. Like, I'm not saying it was the only problem with it, but I truly feel like when it comes to the player experience, I just think that being all one class wasn't a different enough play style for most people to feel like they were having anything to shake up their limited experience. They felt like every draft was the same very quickly. Whether that was true or not, I just noticed that in my circles, most people felt like they had the solved format for it, if you will. And for those of you listening, I did air quotes when I said solved. Very quickly. And I truly just feel like it's because it was single class and whatever. So I think your draftable sets still need to be multiple heroes going forward. And then that at least gives the illusion of being different and whatever. But I think that still having things be crack shuffle playable for the new player experience and new player adoption is important. And something like this is, I think, the best of both worlds, personally. So I dig it. And also, just like with Bright Lights, we did see a lot of people who are like, hey, Mechanology just doesn't interest me at all, so I'm going to skip this entire set, right? And because it was supposed to be a draftable set, and that means it's going to be a part of like Pro Tour experiences or Nats experiences, that's also a bigger deal, as opposed to here, where if they're like, hey, I'm not really into Guardian, I'm going to skip it, it doesn't hinder, right? Like, they're not forced into it the same way. So again, I just truly think that this is, at the moment, the like best of both worlds for trying to still do a single class like support set, and then having all of the benefits of the new player experience, but none of the negatives of the like forced limited experience.
Yeah, I agree. Last question is from Sephiroth. In honor of the Verdance Marvel having her toes out, would you rather jam your big toe or stub your pinky toe? I'm stubbing my pinky toe, I think.
Every time.
Yeah, I mean,
it's going to hurt, and the initial impact's probably going to hurt more than the big toe, but the big toe jamming is going to linger. Like, you can't, it's really hard to like walk without doing the toe.
The fold, yeah, like, you kind of have to. It's not easy at all.
And like, also, like, let's be honest, when you and I get together here in the near future at Gen Con, right? Like, let's just say if I jam my pinky toe, not a big deal. I jam my big toe, then I only got one good toe for you to suck left. So
that's true. Yeah,
I need the full experience.
I'll be hunting on feetfinder.com to find some alternative toes. It's going to be very, this is already going very far downhill. let's not keep adding logs to the fire. But Yeah, I'm jamming my pinky toe every time.
Yeah.
Like I can walk on a stubbed pinky. I'm gonna yell motherfucker really loud one time. That's probably all that's gonna happen.
It's not what I would describe as like a true genetic deformity, but I inherited this thing from my mom's side that like her mom's maiden name. So one of my grandma's name was Shoe. Not like the actual shoe, it's just a coincidence, but we called them shoe feet because everyone on my mom's side has a pinky toe that is like abnormally small and also kind of underneath the other toe. So it's almost non-existent at this point anyway.
And you've been fine without.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. Easy money. Let's thank some patrons. I think that's a good thing to do right now. We'll thank our associate producers, Andy, Sindra, Jacob, Kenny, Larry, and the Salty Z-Cat. Also our executive producers, Alex, Blaze-Storm, value member of the Patreon, Dom, Lance Good Thrust, Matt Tutokes, Puxonus, Trevor, Papa Mike, Philip, Rich, and Sunny. If you are interested in becoming a member of the Patreon, you can go to patreon.com/fleshandpod. Link is in the show notes. There are some number of tiers. Pick one, do the thing. Sounds great. We'll try to do a FAP After Dark after Gen Con. I think I already said that last week, but Bryn has been on tour and Greg is a overloaded father. I am a hot mess most of the time, and Darick is doing victory laps around therapists. So it makes it sometimes difficult to rankle all of us, but we will get one out here, probably after Gen Con, where we'll probably talk about Gen Con, because Darick and I will be there. Or if you're there, you should say hi. You should say hello to us. You can meet the... How would you want to, if you could describe Stark in 2 words, what would they be?
Oh, that's a good question.
Annoyingly effervescent?
I was going to say unapologetically excited.
Okay, that's good. That makes sense. The unapologetically excited Stark Oswalt as well. He will be there accompanying and mostly being a bodyguard for Darick, but he's there to take the bullet. And yeah, so please say hi and let us know what you think of us. If you hate us, great. If you love us, great. If you just want to say, hey, you need to do more movie and comic talk on your show, yeah, that's great too. Well, more than happy to, anytime. If you need to contact the show at all, you can just send us an email at fleshandpod@gmail.com. Link, all the links are in the show notes. I shouldn't keep saying that. You can also just hit us up on Twitter at fleshpod. You can follow us there, whatever. Please do the like and subscribe thing on YouTube. That'd be very nice. I keep forgetting to put that at the first beginning of the video so that people hear it at the beginning of the video. But I'm just an idiot. That's all that there is to it.
Yeah, I'm sure if you look at the analytics, there's 2 people listening right now.
Right. They've all tuned out by now.
Whereas if you put it at the beginning, there's going to be 4 people that hears listening. It.
Yeah. So I'll get those 2 extras and it'll be great. The best thing to do is to join the Discord. That's where 100%. You can interact with all the great people that make Flesh and Pod what it is.
And also me.
And also Darick. Darick, where can they find you?
In the Discord.
Perfect.
Along with all of the amazing people.
Yeah, that link is in the show notes. Again, free to join. Just don't need to be a member of the Patreon or anything else. Just click the invite link and join and hop on in. You can interact with us and anybody else that's hanging out in that Discord. Sounds great. If you need to hit up me directly, it's at Logan Peterson on Twitter. It's Logan Peterson virtually everywhere is my username. So, but honestly, just the Discord is the single best and easiest way to find me regardless. I don't think I have anything else. Do you have
me
anything
either.
else?
No.
All right, good enough. Well, everybody, that's our show for this week. We'll be back next week for the big 140 post Gen Con. So thanks everybody for listening, and we'll talk to you again soon. Bye.